Yes, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Yeah, so I just want to talk about something that this revelation that I had. Um, so last night I was up very late working on music as usual. And when I finished, it was maybe going on 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning, something like that. Um, I wanted to wind down before I got into bed, so I said, let me watch a little TV. So I turned it to MTV. I don't know if you guys are familiar with MTV. It's a channel where they show a lot of the old movies, not movies, but old TV shows from back in the 60's or 70's, you know. They probably do some from the 80's, but a lot of the shows that I watched when I was a child, and I was definitely a TV watcher back then, as were most people of my generation. We were kind of like the TV generation. You know, we had black and white TV, then color came in, and we all had our shows where, you knew what time they came on and all that. So, um, yeah, I loved TV back then, and, you know, I still watch a lot of those programs that I liked back then, and watching them kind of as a grown up, and it's different. So anyway, uh, I came across this show, Land of the Giants, which is kind of like a Gulliver's Travel kind of thing, where, but these people, it's more science fiction. If I remember correctly, the premise was that their spaceship crashed on some remote planet that was inhabited by human type people, but they were like giants compared to people on Earth. So the crew of this American spaceship that had crashed, they they were in immense danger from these giants, because there were some cool giants that would work with them, but then there were also giants that wanted to like put them in a cage and display, do all kind of crazy stuff. But anyway, let me get to my point. I used to love that show as a child, and I watched it last night, and I've seen it a few times, even before last night, and it's the show is horrible. I mean, I don't mean like the special effects, because it was a different time. They didn't have the same special effects that we have today, but it was just a horrible show, and I got to wondering, like, why did I like it so much? I mean, I know I was a child, and it had a little comic book feel to it, so I understand that part. But watching it, I started to realize, oh, I liked it because there was one black guy on it, and his character was dignified, intelligent, and he basically uh, had the same level of importance as the main white character. Now, the white guy might have had a higher billing. His name might have been above the brothers. The brother's name was Don Marshall. And intelligent, dignified, um, handsome, everything that you would see out of the white actors who were like mainstream television stars. So it got me thinking about all those programs that I used to watch in the era of the 60's, because one of our big issues is how we've been represented or misrepresented on television. Now, I don't know much about the 50's. I was born in the 50's, but I'm pretty much too young to remember most things about the 50's. I know Nat King Cole had a TV show, and like the segregationists hated it. Now, I remember in the early 60's, Sammy Davis Jr. had a television show, which my mom used to watch, and it was good. Still, people in the South, white people in the South, didn't like it. because Sammy was not only black, he was also Jewish, so they had issues with that. But thinking back about all the shows in the 60s, like I said, you had Land of the Giants. Then I think about a Western like Rawhide. And to me, that's my second favorite Western of all time, behind Gunsmoke. Okay. Now, Rawhide, they were the first to actually have a black cast member. It was only for one season that they had this brother. His name was Raymond St. Jacques. But his character, like, he was no different from the other people on Rawhide. He was respected. He was portrayed as dignified, intelligent. You know, it wasn't even like, oh, he's the black guy, even though he was. But he was the way he was portrayed. It didn't, there was nothing negative. It was all positive. Okay. Now, even before that, the first show I remember was a show called Julia, starring the great Diane Carroll. She was a nurse. She worked in like a medical clinic. Um, she was intelligent, beautiful. Everyone at her job liked her. They treated her just like she was just anyone else there, you know? And she was a single mother raising a son. Some of us might say, well, that's an issue. Where's the father? And, maybe that is an issue, but, it's still a reality. We have plenty of single mothers out there in the black community, and they're working hard and doing their thing. And that's what this character, Julia, represented. So, and then you look at, what was her name? Denise Nichols, I think, on Star Trek. She was Lieutenant Uhura. She was a lieutenant, Nothing coonish about her character. No, no jive talk, and, just highly intelligent. So this is what I'm starting to realize about the 60s when I grew up watching TV. After Julia, you go to Mission Impossible, the original TV series. Greg Morris, he played a character. I can't remember what, I think his name was Barney or something. The dude was a top level like scientist, and whenever they needed to do anything technical, he was the man. So they showed that he had a level of intelligence, even more than all the other people on the show. So then you had a show, another Western, called The Outcast. And I vaguely remember it, but the reason I know it was from the 60s is because I've seen episodes of it, not on MTV, but on another channel, like Get TV or something like that, where they were showing The Outcast for a while. And the premise is it's a ex-slave, and he hooks up with this ex-Confederate officer, and they become a bounty hunting team in the West, and they work together, but also you kind of see they have little attitudes towards one another, but still, they were equal in the roles. Like I said, the billing might have been higher for the white actor, but it was it's a revelation for me, because we know, like I said, we know about the misrepresentation of black people on television, and I'm realizing that wasn't really the case in the 60s. Now, the main problem in the 60s was that there wasn't enough of us being represented. It was, so we would get excited when there would be a black guy or a black woman on TV. But from what I'm remembering now, most of the roles were positive. Could have been because it was civil rights was going on. It was a little, the country was changing. You know, a lot more white people were, you know, fed up with the whole segregation. You know, there were still a lot that approved of it, and would get upset when they would see black people represented on TV. But then I'm thinking about a show called Mannix about a private detective. He had a black secretary named Peggy, who was played by an actress named Gail Fisher. She was pretty. She handled all his business. There was nothing subservient about her. You know, he would use some, you know, throw her some of his ideas just to see how she felt. You know, it was like regular folks, man. And so yeah, I'm trying to think of any other shows. I know Good Times came. Good Times, I think, was more early '70s, and for me, that's when it kind of went south. Good Times started off good. You know, it was about this family living in the projects in Chicago. They had the father, the mother, 3 children, and it was cool until the producers decided to kill off the father and focus on the oldest son, played by Jimmy Walker. His character was named JJ. And it was just like, started getting real coonish, and he was rhyming, and just, you know, that's when they lost a lot of black folks. You know, I mean, we still watched it kind of because, like I said, there weren't a lot of blacks on TV, but the whole image changed when they killed off the father. And I'm saying that to say that after all these positive images in the 60s, the 70s was when it started to turn. You had a show called Starsky and Hutch. Antonio Vargas played this character, Huggy Bear, I think that was his name. He was like a snitch, like a police informant. He wasn't a policeman, but he was just a street informer that they would use. And, you know, he was dressed in all like pimpish and just, you know, just real bad imagery, you know, and talking all slang and jive, and, you know. So the negative imagery started coming back in the 70s, and it could have been an outgrowth of what they called blaxploitation movies, you know. And I don't even really like that title, because any black movie was lumped into that, and all of them there were some very good movies. Sweet Sweetback. There were some good movies that are considered. Watermelon Man, that's another really great movie by Melvin Van Peebles. But yeah, there were some bad blaxploitation movies, you know. But you know, we didn't have many movies to watch, you know, outside of Sidney Poitier back then. So yeah, the images started turning in the 70s all the way up, from my perspective, up till now, where we're so often portrayed as gangsters, drug dealers, all that type of thing. I thought it was telling when Taraji P. Henson, I think the name of the show was Enterprise, and it was like about a black crime syndicate. Y'all probably know more about it than me because it wasn't that long ago. And I saw Taraji P. Henson getting an award, and it was telling to me because she, at the podium, she actually said, wow, it's incredible that all the movies I've done and roles I played, that they gave me an award for this one. And it was a coded message, you know, basically saying, yeah, the one that's the most derogatory toward black people, y'all give me an award for. So that's how it is here, though, you know. This is America. You know, some black people refer to America as America KKK, you know, but yeah. But getting back to the 60s, yeah, so yeah, and we had, oh, let me mention the Flip Wilson show. It was probably the best variety show of the era. I mean, you had Ed Sullivan that was on a certain level, but he did more. He just more had like entertainment artists and stuff like that. Flip did comedy and different things. And man, at the time, it was the best variety show on television. Anybody that was anybody had to be on that show. I don't care if you were white, black, or whatever. You had to be on that show. So that was another inspiration for us. Who else am I leaving out? I think that's pretty much it. But yeah, so it was a revelation to me when I was watching this Land of the Giants, and I had to think about what was it about it that I liked. And yeah, it's interesting that the 60s, we had positive role images on TV. I can think of very few negative characters. It's just, like I said, there weren't enough. But, you know, a lot of things were changing then. Unfortunately, they changed right back. And I mean, today, you have some positive representation. Some people are trying to do certain things, you know, and I give them credit, but there's still too many gangsters, drug dealers, and just, you know, negative images. So, yeah. And coming from the positive era of the 60s to the coonification of the 70s, that's what I call it. You had a few good things, you know, especially movies like The Learning Tree. Check out The Learning Tree. Gordon Parks did it. Great photographer. But yeah, I just had to comment on the fact that it just occurred to me that, wow, I grew up in a very, I'm just grateful that I grew up and had the images that I had, even though, like I said, it wasn't enough. They were few and far between, but the ones I got, they were positive. And I can't say that for the generations after. You know, they have some positive stuff, but too much coonery and buffoonery. So anyway, that's my take. Look for some of these shows. Some of them are still on. But yeah, anyway, getting ready to go watch the Super Bowl. Hope you all enjoy it. Hope your team wins, especially if you're rooting for the same team I'm rooting for. And I hope you have a positive day. All right? Love and blessings. Yes, Ja.